Are India's crypto ban rumors legitimate? Will India's crypto industry continue? Or is the crypto industry on the verge of the next wave of financial inclusion? Welcome to Word on the Block, the series that takes a deeper dive into blockchain and the emerging technologies that shape our world at the intersection of business, politics, and economy. It's what we cover right here on Forkast.News. Welcome to the show. I'm Forecast Editor-in-Chief Angie Lau. Now we're talking about India today because in mid-September, reports from both mainstream and crypto news sources said that there could be another cryptocurrency ban in the works by Indian policymakers. But it was followed by a sigh of relief when the legislation did not appear on the agenda of the Parliamentary Sessions. Still, it's been a seesaw journey for the crypto story in India, because since the RBI banking ban on cryptocurrency was lifted in March, exchanges report that customer growth has increased by more than tenfold. But still, India's cryptocurrency regulation has been clouded. And uncertainty in the traditional market is pushing investors towards DeFi and crypto. So you have this whole swirl of interest here. And add this to the mix. The latest notable investor to bank on the uncertain crypto industry of India is Tim Draper, who we talked with a couple of months ago right here on Forkast.News. He led a $3.5 million Series A funding round for one of the nation's oldest exchanges in India, in fact, the first, Unocoin. Ban or no ban, it seems like it doesn't matter about the interest. So let's bring him on the show right now here to give us a greater perspective and an insider scoop on how the industry has been reacting to these rumors is the co-founder and CEO of Unocoin, Satvik Vishwanath. Satvik, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on.
Thank you.
Get us up to speed here. From March on, it was celebratory. There was just this huge interest, not only domestically within the borders of India and the excitement from retail investors and just the average person thinking about crypto, but also externally. Since then, we have seen this seesaw effect of policymakers either threatening to ban it, and or restrict it. Where are we today?
Okay, so yeah, on March 4th, 2020, it was a very glorious victory for the cryptocurrency market within India when Reserve Bank of India's notice to the banks was finally set aside by the Supreme Court, right? So just after that, there have been quite a few speculations of how the Reserve Bank of India could react for it. That there has always been a pending bill on the table since more than 2.5 to 3 years. So will it ever come on the table for consideration? So these are all speculations. But given that the bill was written by, the draft bill was written by the committee formed by the government, so it will have to follow its logical journey of ultimately coming up to the table on one fine day, and then whether it gets discarded or it gets considered is a different question. It depends upon the voting that will happen among the members of Parliament itself. So once it is written, it just cannot disappear into thin air. So every time a new session is happening, there is a potential for that draft bill to come on the table, and I think that is where the speculation keeps on happening. Whenever there's a session, this time it could come on the table, and if it actually gets approved, it could actually mean a ban for the cryptocurrency industry in India. So let's say if it happens every 5 to 6 months once, this will keep on surfacing. But at the end, we will at least have to wait till the list of the things they want to consider is released before we start speculating it. But because it's an exciting news, it gets picked up very soon and very easily.
Of course, but
there is always a speculation.
It's helpful to understand to understand the minutia of the parliamentary system in India. So, of course, if you have a draft bill, the process is that at some point At any time the parliament is called every 6 months, there is a potential of that draft bill being introduced. It wasn't this time, so you bought yourself another 6 months, and potentially we'll see it somewhere down the line. It could be sooner, it could be later, but the fact that it was drafted at some point, we'll likely see it. So the first question is, do we know what's in the draft bill, and how is the industry preparing for these conversations? Are there outreach efforts right now, lobby efforts to start educating policymakers and lawmakers about the impact of crypto and blockchain in India?
Yeah, so this draft bill was reported in 2018. However, at that time they didn't make it public. It was only submitted to the government for consideration. But in 2019, that bill, the draft bill, also got published for people to see. We only knew little highlights that I mean, it should be banned, and whoever is trying to do anything, even including holding of cryptocurrencies, could attract a prison time of 10 years, etc. But however, that entire draft bill was released to the public for us to see in the mid 2019. So it was in the midst of the fight that was happening at the Supreme Court, that the Reserve Bank of India's notice should be set aside. And yeah, so it's obviously not favorable at all, almost, and it also is quite outdated. If I have to compare it today, so given the speed at which the industry develops, 2.5 years is a lot of time. And also, when that bill did come to the on the table for Supreme Court, it was not given its weightage. In fact, so and because it was not given its weightage, I mean, that eventually led to the Supreme Court ordering that the notice from Reserve Bank of India should be set aside. So I think the apt way for us right now is, whenever the bill comes on the table, on the parliament for the discussion, we will have to consider when there will be obviously an voting, so where the member of parliament will be either saying yes or no. Right, so in all likelihood, it will be a no this time, because we have done our influence. The industry has done its influence. Media has done its influence on why it should be there in India, to not lose the opportunities. It could be employment, it could be investment opportunities, it could be innovation, etc. And once it eventually becomes a no, then there will be a need for a new committee itself being formed again, to understand what it is right now and how the present law of the land will apply to this, and finally come up with a new balanced view.
I mean, what's really interesting is that time is right now on your side, especially since the March reversal of the RBI ban by the Supreme Court. It really seemed to lift the gates, as it were, of interest, and we saw a flood of interest from across India of people opening up accounts and being really interested in starting to invest in crypto, in alternative assets, in DeFi, in digital assets. Since March up to the moment that we're talking right now, what has been almost the enterprise relationship, the exchange's relationship with the retail investor? Are retail investors getting the kind of customer service, the kind of security, the kind of investment products from a credible point of view that they should be given, versus, you know, what was happening 2.5 years ago, which was the wild, wild west?
Yeah, so when it comes to the customer care, or any help or the advice, so whatever are the services the retail end customer need to eventually get, so I don't think they are deprived of that at all. But like we discussed, this particular bill also makes all of the industry player being very cautious about what they can talk about it. Because it is not us who can take the view that this will eventually become weaker because it is outdated or anything like that. It has to be the regulators or the members of the parliament. So we will eventually need to be very cautious about the message that we are giving to the industry on one side. And it's always been that the retail investors should do their own research to understand it could be volatility risk or the security risks or even the regulatory risks, whatever exists. So they should be aware to get in. And given when it comes to volatility risk, people understand because there is always they are investing into mutual funds or equity or commodity market, so they understand what it is. Security risk they understand because it's still understandable for a very common man how to secure their laptops or mobile phones, etc. But when it comes to regulatory risk, it continues to be something new for them. So and it continues to be something very big for them to consume, which many times are keeping the newcomers away. But however, when it comes to the one who are already involved in the industry, they quite understand all different pieces of the puzzle, and they also see how the entire industry is transforming in the rest of the world, and hope
Yeah.
that the similar thing will happen in India so that we don't really miss out, is what it looks like.
I mean, you're a veteran in this space. Unocoin was India's first crypto exchange way back in 2013. Fast forward to today, did you think that India could get here? Obviously, with just the adoption, the understanding, even the education of this space. Um, you've been through quite the journey yourself. From your point of view, where do you think this industry needs to go, and what do you think that regulators need to realize?
Yeah, I think, see, it's definitely a well-known fact for us that the ride would be quite like a roller coaster ride. So I mean, we have faced that in the first year, and what we faced in the first year, maybe it's like a couple of times multiplied as to what we are facing this year. And it is very similar to how the industry has grown, how the company has grown, how the team has grown, etc. So it's getting like one thing is getting adopted to the other, is what it looks like. So I definitely did not foresee eventually we will actually be able to service for about 7 years, and this is how it will eventually lead. But at the core mission and vision of our statements, it continues to be, whatever it is, and we just try going forward with the same enthusiasm. And when it comes to what it should eventually look like within India, see, I mean, if you see, India has some of the unique traits as compared to the rest of the world. Also, at least to pick up a few, it has the very saving mentality. It is not like, say, the United States, where a lot of times people live on credit, and the end of the month, when they get their salaries, they pay their credit cards, etc. Right? So, but here it is more like the saving. They try to save from, even if they're earning $10, they try to save three or four of it. Right? So that's a kind of thing, and they love gold than any other country. And it is a very digital, tech savvy in nature, given the internet costs have really gone down, where they're almost able to get free internet at a very good speed through the telecom operator. And sometimes, I mean, we just pay like $3 or $4 worth of Indian rupees to get the data plans here in India for the month. And these things combined, and it is a very young nation by itself, right? So these are all the very say characteristics of the country right now. So which eventually means this is the path it should be going forward. But on the
Mm.
other side, India is a very highly regulated country by itself, and when it comes to the monetary policies, the regulations are like tenfold than the normal. And when all of a sudden new thing like cryptocurrency comes into the purview of the regulators, so it also becomes important for them to understand how the rest of the world is looking like, and what it means for the law of the land within India, how to make it adopted from one another. And given we have something called capital controls, so there are regulations how the money should go out of the country and come into the country, and these kinds of things need to be properly addressed, what it means when it comes to the cryptocurrencies, right? So and eventually, and also, well, even when we see payment gateway technology, right? So we were lagging at least about 4 to 5 years. So after the United States saw the payment gateway for online e-commerce portals. It took about 4 or 5 years. And until then, whatever all that we could do was use our credit cards to book anything on US, but never do anything with it. I mean, we could never use our credit cards also online in India because no such gateways existed. So it took for about like 3 to 4 years eventually before and now if you see e-commerce through online is one of the major industries within India, and it is really pushed for, right? So digitization. So I think it is just the question of when it will eventually get adopted in India, and after that there is almost like no stopping, right? So my parents, who at one point of time were very particular that they never want to connect their bank account online, now they are kind of forced to use it, right? So they will eventually become familiar and more comfortable with the new things as it go forward. It could be using of the WhatsApp Messenger, could be, right? So I think it eventually comes down to how much closer to the people we can build the product on one side, and on the other side we definitely would continue to need the blessing from regulators no matter what, but those two things combined would mean a lot for Indians, and not to lose out on multiple opportunities.
I mean, that's a great canary in the coal mine right now. Your parents, once upon a time, they were very digitally averse, and now they are very familiar. They're getting more familiar with that, and it reflects really the appetite, the increasing appetite of an entire nation. The latest response from the crypto industry to policymakers is, hey, why don't we do a regulatory sandbox? What's the proposal there? How would that work, and how do you think that it would be received?
See, when it comes to regulatory sandbox, I think there will be there's obviously the guidelines of how the KYC document should be collected, and how the anti-money laundering laws to be implemented, and especially how, if there is any transactions that are suspicious, how do you report it? Right. So even though today the industry is ready to cooperate to their maximum extent, even if it takes a lot of resources with the regulators, is always there, right? So they want to cooperate, but we don't have a mechanism to do that yet. So, for example, when it is banks, they have a specific channel in which they should be reporting if there is any transaction suspicious in their ledger. But when it comes to crypto industry, we don't have that. Right. So we could just send an email, but it just is one-way communication, and we don't know if it even gets checked by someone. Right. So having it more say responsive, I guess, will eventually help the industry, and we know in which direction we are heading. If we identify something wrong as well, we just know it is wrong, and it would eventually come back to us, like how come this happened to us. But we never had an opportunity to say that we are seeing something wrong, right? So it is very tricky in nature. So these kinds of sandboxes and some mechanism and some guidelines of how we should be accepting the transactions which are coming from the bank account, and how we cannot accept the transactions coming from third party into a different person's account, and what means a transaction is complete. So that, I mean, eventually we don't want someone to say that, yeah, you have taken money, but what you have given is virtual, so it doesn't matter. It means you still continue to have the money with you. It is like you have to give it back. It becomes like tricky. It has to get recognized. Some kind of categorization needs to happen. Okay, I mean, if it is Bitcoin, then it is like a digital commodity, or it's like the currency, or a security, or an asset. So some kind of calculation, some categorization is required.
I mean, and the sandbox is what is being applied. In Hong Kong, the SFC has established sandbox that allows an opportunity for both regulators and the industry to see, how in practicality some of these transactions work, and work in concert and with each other. And then on the other hand, what we've seen as of late, we've seen the SEC and the Department of Justice coming down. We saw arrests with BitMEX. This has been an ongoing investigation, and now we have seen some arrests and warrants for arrests on KYC AML issues, John McAfee for tax evasion. Do you see Indian regulators following this trend that we're seeing from the US?
Yeah, I think when it comes to India, because we don't have a specific guidelines yet, so the ones who are filing taxes or whoever are doing transactions are trying to do it in such a way that it follows one or the other asset class. So either they would be treating it as a commodity or they'll be treating it like an asset. So I mean, both have little different rules and regulations when it comes to both transactions and also filing of taxes. So the Indians obviously are picking up whatever is most suitable for them. But eventually, for us to argue that whatever we are doing is right, it will not completely stand. On the other side, for them to argue whatever they are telling is right, they need to have it as a guideline first, right? So
Yeah.
I think once one of the, once this clarity is established, it becomes more clearer. But I doubt to what extent it can be applied retrospectively to some extent. And on the other side, the crypto market in India, we just got like more or less a pause for about 2 years. We literally had to push it through to come wherever we are right now and surviving and thriving now. So, and our, it could be volumes or it could be number of customers who want to get into this are to some extent limited, right? So, and we haven't really seen say hundreds of millions of dollars of crimes happening within the cryptocurrency market in India, at least something that I'm aware of. But I think going forward, it becomes very essential because once the possibility exists, it will happen someday, right? So
Yeah.
it probably is best when the end customer is aware of what he's trying to do and not to become a prey of such kind of scams on one side, and on the other
There's no
side, the
doubt.
regulators also should be aware. Yeah.
I mean, there's no doubt the regulators do provide the legitimacy, the safety and security for the average retail investor, for the average investor, quite frankly. But do you think this uncertainty in the regulatory environment has influenced the trading volume in India's crypto space?
Yeah, I strongly think it does, but not with at least the people who are already in the industry. But when there is a person who want to actually get involved and is bothered about this. See, we as in we are the players in the industry, so we will have a little different view. But when you see a very common man, and the moment he sees on one day media that there could be a potential ban, and on the next day if he sees that okay, this is going good, so obviously he would be thinking much many more times before getting involved. So at the end of the day, what message that the average customer or a normal consumer is getting really is what matters, because today's normal consumer on the fence is tomorrow's investor in the industry.
Yes,
I mean,
that's right.
the thing. So making sure that the right message is there with him.
Yeah.
They have to understand if it is unregulated, it is unregulated, right? So, but sometimes the news will kind of confuse because it only takes one part of the
Yeah.
view, but not the other. But on the other
Yeah.
side, it will be the same consumer which will read the news from the other side as well, right? So eventually for him to have some kind of confidence. See, one of the biggest concerns I have asked at least a few of the common people who are aware of news on both sides is they're very afraid when they're not afraid to invest today, but they're more afraid what if it becomes illiquidifiable in the future when
Mm,
it is time, right? And they will be ready to put a part of their, could be smaller part of their savings into this, and it could have grown up over a few years as well. But and they would be depending significantly that okay, like if something goes wrong in an emergency case, this exists to be there as like emergency fund. And at that
yeah.
point of time, if it becomes illiquidifiable, is a very say threatening thing for a normal consumer. So they prefer instead, okay, even though that the returns are lesser, I don't want to be a part of something more innovative and investment savvy in nature. So let me just go for mutual funds, and I'm happy with like 10 or 12% interest
It's all
or
about
return they
education.
get. So, so
Yeah,
they will choose that path, right? Right. So
yeah,
I think
you're right.
clarity really matters. Yeah.
And you know, this explosion that we've seen of interest in DeFi, India is no exception to the decentralized finance interest there. What are you hearing and feeling from both institutional and retail investors about DeFi in India?
Within India, the is more about which are the different products that exist, what tokens are behind, and to what extent the tokens are growing. So that is actually the most of the talk we hear here. But I think the talk should be more about what this means to India, and what is the industry size like when it comes to the loans, where on one side you have people pledging gold to take loans. So that is like one of the really big
Wow.
businesses within India.
That's fascinating to hear, that people are using their physical gold assets, which we know is a very popular
Mhm.
asset for Indian families, and they're actually using that to back their bets in crypto. I find that fascinating, and I think it is this potential that really drew in the likes of Tim Draper, who led your Series A. So far, you've raised what, $3.5 million. You've got $1.5 million more to go on this round. What
Mhm.
is the interest that you are seeing from outside investors like Tim, like others in the industry, about the potential of the Indian market?
Yeah, so I would obviously say that so the India is seen like a sleeping beast when it comes to crypto industry market, right? So when it comes to say equity trading or derivatives or commodity, forex, etc. So India having about 17% of the world's population, so we have our share in the global. If you see the globally how much volume it happens and what it is in India. But when it comes to the cryptocurrency market, so that particular share is like gone down by a factor of maybe like 1% of it, of what we were supposed to be doing, or something like that, right? So which eventually brings down to the fact that the huge potential exists with one invisible hurdle of how the eventual regulators will see this as, right? So and it is I mean, it only becomes more clearer if you see the rest of the world. It's all, I mean, it's very unlikely that India would take a different view than a lot of other developed countries who would have written some kind of guidelines and have experimented it. It has worked for them, etc. So so I think they're just seeing it as a big potential market in the short term, and it is worth taking the risk on this market in the country is what I think they would be looking at it as. And one other thing I did not cover is about the remittances. So India is one of the biggest incoming remitter from the countries like Singapore or UAE, US, etc. So where there are always like a lot of say employment opportunities that will be sought out for Indians, and then they keep sending money back home, etc. Right? So and when it comes to the cryptocurrency, I mean, what else can be better than cryptocurrency when it comes to the when it comes to the remittances that you have to send to a specific country? But however, even that actually lacks clarity today as well. But the use cases and lot of savings and the opportunities really exist. So now it will be in the hands of eventually Indians and the regulators to figure out how to take advantage of it, right? So if it is there, it would be a little foolish to not take advantage of it. Eventually, it just keeps growing on one side, and you're just not
Absolutely.
a part of it. Yeah, it will be a tragedy story. Yeah.
It is a fascinating look into India, into the emerging wealth that is coming out, the increasing interest in digital assets and cryptocurrency, and certainly the first crypto exchange in India in 2013. This has been an incredible journey for you. Thanks for highlighting what it's been like and helping us understand from both the regulatory point of view and from the ground. It's great to talk with you, Satvik. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Nice to talk with you as well. Thank you for inviting. Thank you.
And thank you everyone for joining us on this latest episode of Word on the Block. I'm Editor-in-Chief, Forkast.News, Angie Lau. Until the next time.
Thank you.
If you like that, come back for more. All you have to do is click like, always comment, we love that, and subscribe. And don't forget to watch the next one.